session. I'm really excited for you all to be participating in today's session because we have two amazing guests with us, two members of the Stockton City Council, Councilmember Dan Wright and Councilmember Kimberly Wormsley. So we'll start off with just a quick round of introductions from the climate leaders to introduce themselves to you all. And then I would like you to give just a quick background of your districts, like what regions or areas of Stockton they cover, how long you've been in office, and what accomplishments or what are you looking to accomplish as a council member. And then from there we can just do like a quick Q&A, just like about whether you ask them questions about how they're enjoying the program or things you want to learn about the program through them, or vice versa, things they want to learn from you both about being about advocacy or city council and how all that works together. So with that, I'm mostly going to be hands off. I want it to be more of an organic conversation amongst all of you to give this opportunity for our climate leaders who, I think for many of them, this is probably their first time engaging with city council members on this level. So again, I just want to say thank you to both of you for taking time out of your day to meet with them, and look forward to hearing what your conversations are all about. So with that, we'll start with Pat.
William said we should say our pronouns she, they. And I joined the climate because I've always been involved with climate. I don't want to leave my great-grandkids with an apocalypse, living underground. And that's what I've always been conscious of. I sit there with my garbage every day. Boom, 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 boom. Sorting my garbage, doing with cardboard recycling, finding a good cause for it. So always been interested in climate.
Hello, my name is Liliana Carmona. I'm a climate leader, she/her, and I've lived in Stockton since the late 70s. Reason why I joined the climate leaders is because I'd like to learn more into what a lot of the issues really entail. I'd like to be a part of some of that help or some of that process.
Hello everyone, I'm Kimberly Wormsley, and I use she/her pronouns. And the reason why I joined the Climate Leaders program is to learn about how the climate issues are affecting me and my community, particularly those who live in South Stockton. And I want to know how I can help and how I can raise awareness to people I know.
Hello, you too. My name is Reina, and I joined because I know the health risks that bad air quality can bring you. I'm really into healthcare and medicine, and I really want to change that with, especially in the south side of Stockton. We don't really care about our health, and we don't know the risks that the bad air quality brings to our health. So I just wanted to get more information and spread out the information that I received to my community.
Hi, my name is Cynthia. She, her, hers. The reason I decided to become a climate leader was because I recognized that it took me a 4-year degree to condense that information and bring it to my community, because I've been able to study it for 4 years and make a career out of it, but many of those residents in South Stockton don't have the opportunity. So I want to be able to provide them with that information and resources available.
And west and east, and then Calaveras River to Morada Lane, south to north. And that's a new boundary as of December of last year. He, him, his, my pronouns. Let's see, what my accomplishments and what am I most proud of, or what am I really working toward? So I will start with accomplishments. Like Kimberly here, I like to consider myself a policy leader on the council and trying to move a lot of things over the long term. I have found myself in a lot of different leadership niches, beginning with housing. I've been on the League of Cities Housing Committee since 2016. I'll be taking over as its chair next year. And so housing's been obviously huge for us. We're obviously having trouble keeping up with the needs of both the amount of affordable housing and the amount of shelter space for our unsheltered population. But I am proud of the work that we've done, to the extent that we've covered a lot. We're adding more and more. It's just, it's almost a Sisyphean task. We're rolling that boulder up the hill and it keeps rolling back over on us. But we, like just last night, approved $7 million in HUD grants to affordable housing developers in the community, and hopefully, I know in at least a couple of those cases, it's going to lead housing within the next 2 years. The others, they're starting to piece together the issues. I've been a leader on water issues. I've been the chair of the water committee for over 4 years now. And I've been on the water committee since I joined the council. And I'm the chair of SAJAFCA, the local flood control agency. And I'm really proud of the work we're doing on SAJAFCA. We're getting a lot of work done that's really benefiting South Stockton. We're fixing the levees for Mossdale Tract, and the Lower San Joaquin projects is going to benefit South Stockton and even Brookside to a huge degree. So there's a lot of people on the west side of Stockton that will be very pleased when all of that work gets done, and we continue to get funding for it. So I'm really excited about that. The Mossdale project is giving us a little bit of trouble in getting some funding for it, but we'll get there. We always do. And the feds have come through for us big time, so I'm really proud of the advocacy work we've done. Climate leadership, the meeting after I joined the council was the presentation of the first climate action plan that the city ever had in 2015. And that was a requirement that we had to implement as a result of a settlement with the Sierra Club and sports fishermen and the Attorney General at the time. And so it was kind of thrust into the climate element. And interestingly enough, about 4 or 5 months later, I got involved with community choice aggregation through a chance phone call that I took from Woody Hastings from the Climate Center in Sonoma. And I'm proud to say, and I'm not telling stories out of school now because I think it's public knowledge, but our council on September 13th will take a vote on whether Stockton will become a community choice aggregation city. And I'm excited. I think that we will. And I'm hoping that the support is there from all you climate leaders there at that September 13th meeting to either submit a comment or show up for that meeting, because that will be huge. All of that money that goes into profits for PG&E for procurement will now be returning to San Joaquin County in terms of investment back into the community for climate-related projects.
What is it called?
Community choice aggregation.
Aggregation.
Yes. Transportation has been another piece that I found myself, and I know I'm talking a lot, but I've been on the council for almost 8 years now. So I'm on the Council of Governments, which is our main transportation committee for San Joaquin County and the region. And so our focus is trying to support public transportation to the degree we can here in the Central Valley. Things aren't close by, and we don't have public transportation running as frequently as it does, say, in the Bay Area, where people can, catch a BART every 15 minutes. You can find yourself waiting an hour, sometimes here in Stockton, to catch public transportation. I think one of the things I'm really working on there is bringing Valley Link to fruition, which will provide a BART-like transportation system from Lathrop all the way to Dublin Pleasanton, where we'll connect with BART. And that will take up to 100,000 travelers a day off the 205. And anybody who's been on the 205 when it's been stalled, knows that that's just gas going into the air. Yeah, it's bad. So that would be huge, a huge win for public transportation. And I'm going to leave it at that. There's probably more there somewhere, but I'll save it for our next conversation. Pass it on to Kimberly.
Hello, folks. I am Councilwoman Kimberly Wormsley. I use she, hers, queen, sis, hermana pronouns. I am from South Stockton, born and raised, Stockton native, South Stockton native. My great-grandparents resided in South Stockton. My grandparents resided in South Stockton. I've lived there all my life. I'm raising my kids there. I am the freshman council member. However, as you can tell, I bring a little spice to the council. And what I mean by that is asking the tough questions and raising the concerns of the voices of South Stocktonians. And I know that all too well because of the historic marginalization and redlining that we all have felt as South Stocktonians. And so, so much to say about, I guess, my portfolio of accomplishments. But first and foremost, I would like to say, just really, I've been very proud of myself and really reaching out to the community, being that voice, being available to people. I am a mental health therapist and clinician by trade. So I think one of the biggest championships that I can really identify is really making sure that the city thinks through the lenses of trauma and healing and wellness for our community, especially a community like South Stockton that has felt this forever. Like when we talk about climate issues, it isn't a real-time issue, it's a historic issue. I've been interviewed with systems like Cal Matters, where I've been very vulnerable and transparent about even my own experience of being a chronic asthmatic because of the climate issues that South Stocktonians face. And my children also are impacted by climate deficits, having asthma as well, and eczema because of our poor water supplies. And so being a champion in that way is important, just really talking about our truths. I'm on SBJACA as well as Councilmember Dan Wright, who's also the chair. I think that one of the things that I can take a bow on is making sure that Van Busker went from number 6 to number 2. Because when I came in, I understood the assignment, which was making sure we were elevating this community that has been left behind. So that meant organizing town hall meetings, listening sessions, inviting the city, inviting the SBJACA staff as well, because they are the ones that have the relationship with the federal government. And so I'm really proud of that. And then lastly, really taking a dive in, making sure that all contracts that are passed through these big projects also have a youth component, because our young people need to get paid because the rent's too high. So I'm really proud about that. I'm also proud of, although it wasn't successful in DC, I did advocate for the $70 million to be earmarked to the MLK corridor. I did all of the research about that corridor and its existence since 1931, right after the Spanish flu. Now we're coming right out of COVID, and so making sure that we have connectivity for our young people. It's blight. It also contributes to climate deficits, and so we deserve that restoration of that underpass. So I'm still going to fight for that. We weren't successful in Washington, but that doesn't mean that I stopped fighting. But just the fact that no other council members really raised that concern was something that was historic in my mind. I could be wrong. The third thing is really champion food insecurities. Last night during council meeting, if you did not watch, it was pretty, I think it was some pretty good sentiments where I talked about my struggles with weight and the lack of food security institutes in South Stockton, which is crazy because when you look at the data, you look at the statistics in South Stockton, we know that obesity and high blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes, whatever, we know that that is most problematic in South Stockton. We do know that 7 out of the 14 poorest census tract is in South Stockton. So making sure that every conversation and policy, I'm raising our stories. I say our stories because I'm still a part of South Stockton, and my story is my story, and that's my truth. And so making sure when we're talking about mobility, and we're talking about these pipeline and vessels to heal our community, we are making sure that all roads lead to South Stockton. Now, you know, sometimes folks get mad at me and say, well, it's not always about South Stockton, Kimberly. I have to remind them, yes, it is, because the gap is so big that as other areas in our city is evolving, ours continues to widen. So the gap is still there. And so making sure that every conversation that we have, I'm elevating that. And then lastly, something that I'm currently working on in real time, South Stockton has had the highest code enforcement citations and penalties than any other area in Stockton. And so I'm working through the neighborhood transformation subcommittee, which I'm the chair of, and doing some things to restore code enforcement. So it is a process that includes resources and support, and it's not always punitive. So we're giving individuals that, you know, that pathway to being a solution versus let's penalize, let's lean, let's take people's houses, because we already have a housing issue and deficit that is huge. And so those are, I can kind of go on forever because y'all know, as you can see, I talk a lot, but I'll leave it at that, and looking forward to hearing from you all and what some of your concerns are and how I can assist you. Thank you.
Any questions you have on anything either of us presented?
I have a question. Good evening, everybody. My name is Tanisha, and I'm the program specialist with Catholic Charities. And I had a question for Councilwoman Wormsley. You, first of all, thank you for coming out here and meeting with our climate leaders. My question was that you say you continue to stay in South Stockton and you're raising your kids in South Stockton. What made you not want to leave when you're very capable of leaving?
Mm-hmm. Extremely capable of leaving.
Yeah.
Very capable of leaving.
Yes.
Because it's home, and I think that one of the biggest things that I always say is, like, in order to understand South Stockton, you have to live in it. And I think that just because of all of the challenges I've experienced as a woman of color, as a single mom, I think that experience, it complements my ability to be a solution builder and a change agent. And so I'll never give up in South Stockton. In fact, I'll share. I just got approved to buy a house. And my kids are like, oh my God, let's go over to Spanos. I'm like, no, we're gonna be this is where I live. I love South Stockton. There's something about it. It's like our community, the resiliency, the grit, the tenacity. Like, there are stories of hope in South Stockton. I know that I've talked about a lot of the deficits, but there's so much more in terms of a surplus there. And I'll never give up in South Stockton. My mom and my stepdad, also other folks who were capable and could leave and go anywhere.
Yeah.
They don't, because we love it. I mean, yeah, it's true.
Thank you for answering that question. And the reason for asking this question was because, we see it on the news, we see it everywhere, people say, well, if they're living in a disadvantaged community, if they're capable of moving out, why don't they move out? It's not easy because of all the sentiments and the memories and everything that's involved with it. So,
For sure.
Sometimes you don't want to move. it's like a home away from home.
Absolutely, and it's amazing too, because I think that a lot of times I'm in areas that people like, oh my God, aren't you the council member? And I'm like on 8th and B at the taco truck at Nana's. And like, I just love it, and I think it just gives people just a sense of like politicians are people too, right? And so at the same time, I think it also complements why I'm pretty well liked.
I have a question about, I know that we're watching out for water reduction because of the drought.
Yes.
I have noticed in South Stockton, there's a lot of areas and parks that are extremely dry, including my neighborhood park. It's really yellow. And today there was a fire alongside the freeway. I was wondering what advocacy works and what committees we can go talk to that about on the county level.
I'll take the first stab at that,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you've got. There should be no restrictions on parks. They're supposed to keep regular watering schedules. So if they're not watering the park, then that's something the city needs to be made aware of. I would use Ask Stockton. It's usually the best tool. Identify the park and say the grass is dry and a fire risk. And then what we probably have is broken sprinklers, and those are certainly easy enough to fix. We have staff that does that. But yeah, we are asking residents to, depending upon whether you're an even or odd address, I think it's Tuesdays, Saturdays are the watering days for odd addresses, and Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Sunday. So Wednesday, Saturday for odd, and Tuesday, Sunday for even addresses. And not supposed to be watering between the hours of 8 and 5.
6.
6?
Six.
6?
Okay.
6.
Oh my God.
I get that. Well, and can I just intercept real quick? So if you subscribe to Ask Stockton,
Yeah.
you'll get it'll ask you what do you want to subscribe to,
Yeah.
and you do news releases, and you'll get it and put your email in there, and then you'll get news releases as the city of Stockton releases stuff like that.
So thank you
Yeah.
for making that correction. Yeah,
And
I
then
think it
in
is 6
between they
now
do
that I
the
think of it.
gardens, and in between that they do the schools and the parks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to kind of elaborate too, Alyssa, I think that it's also important that
There's an app for it, so you can just go to the Apple Store or Google Play, and you can download it, or you can go to the City of Stockton website, and that's the
And if you can't find it, you can
StocktonCA.gov.
Send you the link.
It looks like that.
yeah.
Okay.
And I think that this is critical information for community members and residents to understand and learn as well. Is so much quicker to either provide that work order through Ask Stockton or give us a call. I know that.
And make us a second call once
Yeah.
you've filled this in, and we'll.
Right. But I know that I myself, I often kind of ride the community and look around. But we can't be at all places at all the time. So making sure that as community members that we're proactive. I tell people all the time, our parks are our investment as residents. They're not the city of Stockton's park. They're the community's park. So making sure that we're taking pride on our assets that was given to our community, our young people. So being a voice for our parks is critical.
And a brief correction on that. The name of the program is Ask Stockton. The city's website is stocktonca.gov. There's no dot. stocktonca.gov.
Yeah, and one of those, when I tried the other day, God bless the schools, but the water's going over the edge, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
And I want to ask Stockton, and I want to do a pothole. Some of this stuff, like what you click on, what you're reporting, isn't there.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so we're on that one, right, for now, because I brought this to William. and I brought this to Alicia because she's his assistant. The other day I was coming down my street, and here was a guy, and he had this huge SUV, and he had this huge, humongous, big wheel truck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's watched. This is after y'all made the declaration of restrictions, right? And I've got it here on the phone, and so. And he's soaping his cars, and he's washing them in the street, and I'm like, get it on the lawn if you're going to do anything,
Yeah.
right? And I asked him, no, and he just kept smiling because English wasn't his language,
Right.
and Spanish isn't my language. And this is what I'm talking about. My neighborhoods, we need to reach out to my neighbors that don't get on the internet, that don't speak English, and reach out to them and let them know we're in a crisis. Because I have a neighbor there and a neighbor there, and they've got those kids blow up water slide castle things in the middle of 106 degrees. I don't care what day it is.
Mm-hmm.
And all this water's going down the gutter, and they've got these huge yards.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, wait, this has got to stop. These guys aren't getting the message. And so one of my concerns is how can we come together and get this message out to our residents?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. I think that has been another accomplishment that I didn't highlight, but you're right, because our website is in English and not Spanish. I think that the city is finally moving to a direction that they're more inclusive with linguistics. Spanish is the dominant language in terms of second language other than English. There's 58 languages in San Joaquin County. And so we have to, in order to really connect to the people, we have to be where they are. And so that's good information. We can probably take it back to Subjac, and we're both on the water committee as well. So we can definitely continue to push the needle on that, take that back. And then also, one thing that I hope that we've learned through COVID is that relationships with community-based organizations and churches is critical, because they are also people who are trusted partners out there that can push the messaging. And I know that when we had this conversation on the dais, that was one of the things that I brought up, is like, how are we going to talk about the tips to save water, to preserve water, if we're not talking to those very same entities that were at the forefront? Because they should be messaging. They should be at events with young people, because it's probably not going to be the guy that's washing the truck. It may be the kids that need to educate the parents. We got to be where people are at.
Right.
And that means, as city leaders, as the city of Stockton, we have to step it up. And so
Right.
I've been a champion, and I will continue to be one in that way.
If Gospel Rescue Mission can get a grant, and Catholic Charities can get a grant to get flyers that I throw away constantly, because they're only good for this, right? Only because I know the programs.
Yes.
We need to put some money into getting the mailers, in bullet point, bilingual, Tagalog. In my neighborhood, because that's what we speak. We speak English, Spanish, and Tagalog.
Punjabi,
And then
Hindi,
Punjabi.
you got the Sikh temple right there.
Right.
So it's definitely missing the mark. I will be more than happy to give some discretionary funds to a nonprofit who's certified and capable to do this in those areas, because they are problematic in the sense that they are the ones that need it the most. And if you think about it, those 7 neighborhoods on that census tract are all within the MOK Charterway corridor. So it's speaking volumes to what you're talking about.
So I'm going to address a water issue. So I just bought my house that I lived in for 13 years and bought bottled water the whole 13 years. My dogs never drank the tap water, okay?
Because you're worried about the pipes?
Pipes?
Yeah.
You should see what they did when they cut it off to do the water system. Because I could smell. Yeah, don't even go there, right? I could smell the sulfurs, I could smell the chlorines, I would come out looking like the Mojave Desert, right? And so when I bought my house, I put in an $8,000 water system. Well, Me and the dogs, we can drink the water now.
Yeah. Good deal.
Congratulations.
And I don't come out quite as how he does it, because it is a salt thing. But my thing is that I was talking to one of the climate people about getting funding for people that are low income or homeowners of low income or of at risk to help balance out some of that cost. You know, I know 8,000, and I got it through Costco, is a lot of money, but if we can do solar, we should be able to help families with air conditioning systems that are, you know, COPD, elderly. When I leave, because of COVID, I was at home and not in an air conditioning building anymore. My COP flared up and so did my asthma, like it just went off the charts because I leave my windows open. I don't have air conditioning.
Yeah.
But when I close them and turn on my little air conditioner, because it's 100, because the dog does this to me at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, telling me it's time to turn on the AC, right? I breathe better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the windows
Absolutely.
are closed, the air is cooler, I breathe better. And I said, I forget who I said it to, but I said it to one of the other climate leaders. I said, can we get a grant to do air conditioning? They don't have to be, they can be those mini splits, you know? We don't have the kind of house that needs to go into every bathroom and kitchen. We have houses that you put it in the bedroom and in the living room. It's in the house, you know? And so maybe we can find grants through Measure M or whatever, what a measure is it, that we can get monies to improve our side of town. And the water systems, the pipes, you should have seen the pipe when he cut it open to put the system to it. It was like, I have a stent because I had 75% blockage. That's what it looked like. It needed a stent. It was horrifying. It was like, because I keep telling everybody, you gotta take off your thing and do this to it on the kitchen counter and watch the stuff fall out.
And and your story just kind of, it resonates with me for a few things. So my grandfather was a longshoreman. He was probably one of the first African-American longshoremen in the state of California. My grandmother was one of the first African-American state employees. So they worked their whole entire life. Retired, they were homeowners, but their income was not enough to qualify for subsidized programs, but not enough to qualify for like home improvement loans. And so it was so problematic for them. Like my grandmother was a diabetic. She eventually lost her leg. And so she ended up having to build a ramp, but they didn't have enough money to build the ramp so that she can get in and out of the house. And they couldn't qualify for the loan because they didn't have enough, but they couldn't qualify for any subsidies because they were in that cuff. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up, because when you look at a lot of the data and the indicators of those who live in South Stockton, a lot of them are retired, you know, former this or that, but their incomes aren't good enough to qualify for this or qualify for any of the programs. So maybe 10 years ago, maybe even 20, the city of Stockton had funding for people to like recondition their house, for people like you, like my grandparents, that needed that additional support. But because of state guidelines, I think it was it Pete Wilson or Gray Davis that did the line by line and took the statewide CBDG grants.
I think that was Wilson.
Oh, it was Wilson.
Yeah.
So the city had dollars for these type of programs. Currently, they don't. But in part of this proclamation resolution that I'm trying to create in our neighborhood transformation, I'm talking about why can't the city like not earmark $1 million or $2 million so that it can help people rehabilitate their homes. They can stay in it longer. It's more healthier, connectivity, accessibility, etc. I think that the city is a small step. Is it the standalone solution? Absolutely not, because the reality is we just don't have the budget to do everything. But we should be making some small strides to help support people in like situations like yours,
I'm
situations like my
thinking back
grandmother.
to 2008 when President Obama was first elected. That was a big drive, was weatherization of houses
Yeah.
and making sure that people's windows were replaced and the double paned windows and insulation. And so that might have been that period of time that you were referring back to, almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while. I
And on
think
that,
Podesta was mayor,
Yeah.
so it's been.
and on that note, I have the double pane, okay, the weatherization, but
Yeah.
my house is 85 years old on South Side, so I have basement.
It's 85 years old.
It's
Yeah.
basement
Wow.
with a crawl, right?
Yeah.
So those panes do not a thing for this house
Mm-hmm.
because the drafts that come through there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's some more insulation work that needs to
Yeah.
be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they say I have insulation, but when they opened up my bathroom wall to take out the tub for me and put in a shower, the stench of rat poop and pee in that insulation, I can't afford to replace the insulation, so I'm
Right,
still
the house,
living
yeah.
in that condition. I'm not complaining. I lived there for 13 years and survived,
Yeah.
you know? First thing I did was new carpet in the water system, and then a program in South Stockton, I got my solar panels.
Yeah.
Right on.
Right? Yeah. So now I'm ready for the air conditioner, now I can afford it,
For
right?
it, yeah, because you got the solar panels.
Right. But, you know, it's something that, there was back in the day, I remember in Fremont, we had that one that was done through the city where people of a certain income or rented, and they qualified if they had a rental home, if they were low income or seniors. If they were, the landlords were a certain bracket, right? And they had renters of low income, they qualified to do home improvements with a 3% interest, you know? They were able to do stuff to the roofs, down to the, you know, the walls and the floors. And if we could bring something that back, because my whole thing is, everything you do to the north side, match it once or twice to the south side.
Mm-hmm.
That's my dream,
Mm-hmm. Mine too.
you know? I'm so tired of pothole. I'm so tired of one street being half smooth and all of a sudden you go, boom! It's like, there
Mine
goes that
too.
shock, you know?
We have them up in the north side too.
Few and far apart.
All right, can we see Brenda's hands up?
So what have you guys done for, in relation to like health, issues, within the community? I know that, before COVID, there used to be like a health event every May, I think, and, UC Davis students would come and would check like blood pressure and, glucose levels and stuff like that. So, and I don't know if City of Stockton was part of that, but I just wanted to know what have you guys done for
Well,
health?
the city of Stockton doesn't have a public health office. That's handled through the county. The state sends all of its health funding to the counties, the 58 counties throughout the state, and they're responsible for implementing that. That includes mental health. We do sometimes get grants that have positive impacts on health, and I think our Parks and Recreation Department has done a lot in that respect in trying to keep youth sports going, adult sports going, to keep people active at least. We have redone the bike master plan for the community. We're trying more and more to create clearly designated bike lanes, especially on north-south arterial roads, and a few east-west. It's harder with the east-west because we have fewer of them, but on the north-south, you know, we were able to get a lot more of those done. California Street, Airport, you know, the airport one's going to come next. Minor, we were able to do it on Minor, east-west, and that's primarily health-wise. That's where we fall. And I can tell you, Kim is a nonstop voice for mental health on our council. She speaks to it practically every meeting.
Yeah.
So it's
Surprise!
and as you know, as a lifelong educator, you know, I was an administrator in Stockton Unified for 25 years. I know the need is there. You know, so both with parents and with students, and so whenever we can find a way to carve out part of the grant here or there, or our community services department can provide some element of that at a community center, we'll advocate for that. But most of that funding goes directly to the counties.
Yeah, and just to chime in too, I think that the American Rescue Plan dollars, the CARES dollars, has given us some flexibility to be more intentional, especially with COVID. And I know Dan is like, yeah, you always say that. But one thing that I tried to bring out is like, hey, when are we going to start talking about the fact that the people whether you survive COVID or not, really was about your health. Okay, so if you were asthmatic, so I'm an asthmatic, y'all know that. Like, I probably spend more money, probably about $350 a month on asthma. I've had COVID 3 times, hospitalized 2 times because of that. And then after I had COVID the 3rd time, I had pneumonia. I think I've gained like 50 pounds just from asthma. I was looking good at that time too. I was going to the gym, losing some weight. But then I got really sick and I gained like 50 pounds. But needless to say, health outcomes, health deficits are real. The CARES money, the ARP money has allowed us to be more flexible. The city was responsible for making sure that we had kiosk machines that had COVID tests. We did coordinations of vaccinations, and that included stakeholders like UOP and the Abbott Foundation and other CBOs that had more of the relationships, so the city was involved in that way. For me personally, you gotta watch the council comments. I was on fire last night because I talked about how specifically last month, I think I spent $23,000 on youth programming, from a free soccer clinic in South Stockton on B Street. I grew up on B Street. So we did a free soccer clinic where kids got to play soccer free, and they were conditioning and training with like a semi-pro team here in Stockton. And then also, I also gave another discretionary fund donation to Shaw for Community. So be on the lookout because we're going hiking. And the bus will be picking up residents in South Stockton, so there's no excuses. So I'm excited about that, as well as doing some educational informational sessions in the park where we're going to be talking about food prep. We're going to be talking and giving free demonstrations. So we're not just talking. People are going to leave there with groceries. The edible schoolyard, another pathway that the city has used to promote health and wellness. Bread of Life also received a substantial amount of money that the city has given, again, for health needs. Now, we're probably not going to be able to do that long term because of sustainability. Ooh, now I'm talking like a politician. That was a big word, huh?
We're going to do what we can.
Yeah, but we're going to do what we can with what we have. But I do want to continue to empower you all to make sure y'all knocking on the Board of Supervisors' door. That is responsible and is the Medi-Cal beneficiary for the county. I am a clinician, so I know that. That's not something that's a deep, dark secret. And I think it's somewhere near 70% of people who live in Stockton qualify for Medi-Cal. And probably don't even know that. And so making sure that we are pushing the needle and making sure that even though we're not responsible because we don't oversee it, but we have a platform and we have a voice, and we should be using that to elevate the needs of our constituents and residents, especially our young people.
I have a few questions about, okay, so school is starting, when is August 1st?
Mm-hmm.
For Stockton Unified, starts on Friday.
This one, yeah.
And I saw that California schools are now starting at 8:30, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is
No
there-
earlier than. Yeah.
Is there any changes to when the buses come to those houses? Because I remember it was already hard enough when I was a student, it was hard enough as it was with the bus schedule. They only came around like 6 o'clock and 6:15 for me. So are the bus schedules kind of changing?
They're going to have to obviously change.
You want to talk about our meeting? We just had a meeting with RTD.
Yeah, you can speak a little bit to that, yeah, because we just spoke a little bit with them. They're aware of it. So that would be for the high school students, obviously, and K through 8 is still transported if they live beyond a mile from the school district, from the school of attendance. But that is strictly a school district issue. They should have contacted families before now, letting them know when. So if you haven't heard, if you have families that haven't heard, tell them to call the school district transportation department, and and look online on the city district's webpage. I know when I was superintendent, that was out beginning of July. So it should be there by now.
Yeah.
I know they've had some turnover in some leadership positions, but it should be there by now.
Yeah, I don't know. The other day I checked to see if the schedules were up, and I didn't see anything. And I'm like, isn't this supposed to start in like a week? I've only heard that through word to mouth, like mouth to mouth. I haven't heard anything like officially.
We had radio ads letting people know school starts. Go check out our website for bus times.
So Dan and I we met with RTD actually last week, and we were voicing some of the concerns. But I could have swore they said that they are now servicing 7 through 12 for all school districts. So RTD.
Free transportation 7 through 12. But I think the school district still, but maybe not now that they've made that deal.
Well, so 7 through 12, you will get a bus pass. And I think that they have contracted with every school district from Manteca. I think Lincoln, they're still in talks.
Yeah.
SUSD, Manteca, so those
Lodi.
are, and Lodi.
Yeah.
So everybody who's 7 through 12 gets a free bus pass to get to school. The times.
I think it's their school ID actually.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
They
Okay.
just use their
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will check on the times, but I did bring that up. I did bring up how like the airport corridor is a concern of mine, Little John Creek and Western Ranch, because a lot of some other areas the buses run every 15 minutes, and many in South Stockton run every 30 minutes. Yeah, and that could be problematic for people who are going to school. It could be problematic for people who work. And in fact, I'm a storyteller, and I believe that my stories are our stories, because I'm sure that I'm not the only one who has experienced that. But when I was going to Delta, it would take me 2 buses to get to Delta. And then when I got out of the Delta and had to get my small kids, I would have to take 2 buses to drop my kids off at the other daycare, and then take another 2 buses to get to work. So I understand completely the sentiments that you're raising. Although we don't have jurisdictions, again, a platform is a platform, and I'm not afraid to tweet.
But they are a
to
public
somebody.
agency,
Yeah.
so you should be reaching out to them as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go to their board meetings.
Yep.
Their new CEO is Alex Clifford,
Yeah.
and he seemed quite transparent, quite open.
Absolutely.
I would reach out to him and make him prove it.
Can you guys share with us where we could find the committees? You said you're sitting on housing and water?
Oh, there's a number of different committees. I unfortunately was conflating a lot of different organizations.
Okay.
The city of Stockton has 5 standing committees and 2 ad hoc committees. Let's see if we can remember them all. There's a legislation and environmental committee, and that's where new policy comes to be born. There is a water committee. There's planning commission is a completely different thing.
Yep, that's that. Yeah.
This is a committee. Not
These are
commission.
members that have council members as part of it.
Finance.
Audit committee,
and
budget and finance. Those are 2 different committees. Budget and finance is one. Audit committee is another.
Neighborhood transformation.
Neighborhood transformation, and community something.
Community something.
Yeah, the betterment, community
Uh-huh.
betterment. And
Housing. Homelessness and housing.
homelessness and housing is an ad hoc committee.
Okay.
Okay. And
Mayor's task force.
Mayor,
Or
and
disabilities.
that, but then, okay, that's different. In the case of the commissions and task forces,
Okay.
those are citizen committees. For example, there are appointees to the planning commission. Each council member appoints a planner, a commissioner to the planning commission.
I can't think of the fifth one.
What's that?
I can't think of the fifth one.
I can't either.
Sorry, go to the city's website. It's
They're also hanging on the bulletin board at City Clerk, because I was just in there and I saw
Yeah.
it said boards, committees, and commissions
Yeah.
on a pin to the wall.
Yeah.
Then there's the Stockton Arts Commission,
Planning Commission.
Planning Commission, Parks and Rec Commission.
Parks and Rec Commission.
Those are
Thank
the
you.
three biggies.
Yeah.
And maybe it's worth, just to take a step back, just make sure everyone's on the same page. The reason sort of those sub-bodies are like really important is because if you ever notice when you get to like the city council meetings, most of those items have kind of been filtered out through like a lot of conversations
Yeah.
already. So it can be very difficult once you're already at that meeting to make big changes to things. So usually the most brainstorming sort of dynamic conversations are gonna happen more at like committee
The
level.
committee
Or
levels.
even before the committee when there's sort of meetings with people. So it can be really important. It's easy to get lost in those meetings because
Yeah.
they happen a little less frequently and they're not as advertised, and city council is sort of the big deal, but really a lot of those subcommittees is like where a lot of the actual work.
That's where the sausage gets made.
Yeah.
Ah.
And, I think it's important for folks who want to learn how to advocate and make change in the community. You gotta know where like decisions are made,
Where it begins.
processed, and oftentimes it's like
Especially-
a view of democracy where we get to the voting.
Right.
That's when it happens, but in reality, a lot of that bureaucracy really happens well before voting's taking
Yeah,
place.
and
right?
especially the legislation and environmental committee, because that committee is the one where really all the new policy starts.
Like
You know.
taco trucks, you got all my neighbors upset.
I saw that.
I want you to know this, they're coming to me saying, oh my God, how much money do we have to pay now?
No, they just need to stay away from brick and mortar restaurants.
Right, but it's not voted yet.
It's not, yeah.
It's not voted yet.
It's not
Haven't
voted
voted.
on yet, but if it's passed, they'll just have to stay away from brick and mortar
Right.
restaurants. I think our taco truck policy is one of the more permissive ones, actually. Other cities are much worse about it.
I have two within
Yeah.
arm reach of my house, so
Yeah.
I get the smell first thing in the morning.
No,
Yes.
we're small business friendly, but those brick and mortar restaurants are small businesses too.
Right.
And we're just trying to be fair.
I submit a comment about that though, because I'm
Yeah.
concerned about gentrification and displacement.
Yeah.
I feel like we can be working with the small business departments that we have already, just because like a lot of our residents do rely on the trucks because they're working and they're
Mhm.
within their neighborhoods.
Mhm.
But anyways, I
No,
don't
we're not
wanna-
getting rid of them.
I don't wanna
It's
figure
just,
out-
we're
I
just
know.
clarifying the rules, that's all.
Yeah.
Right, but then here's, the thing is brick and mortar restaurants, you got 5 restaurants right next to each other. What's a
Mhm.
taco truck?
Right. Think about Lincoln Center, right? Those particularly go to a certain consumer who can afford it.
Yeah.
And there's trucks not too far from there because the residents live.
300 feet is all we're asking.
Right.
Just stay 300 feet away, that's a football field. That's,
Yeah, but that's like, what is discrimination, because if they, like the El Galicias on Martin Luther King, did I say it right?
Yeah.
They took it and made a taco wagon restaurant,
Yeah.
drive-through. And it was like, so if a taco wagon collected money and wanted to put it in that parking lot and bought that piece of land from the owner, now you can't say, well, you gotta be 300 feet away from that restaurant.
Well, they're the same brand though.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying?
No, I know what you're saying. I just know my taco trucks.
yeah.
That's my, yeah, I made
Yeah.
history. I was the first customer at that taco
But
car.
I mean, we can't discriminate. We have to.
I hurried up and ate it too. I was like, oh,
Right.
let me eat this first. I made
But we have to
history.
be fair to our small businesses and say, hey.
It was fairness on both ends. You know, they have other places where they can go, you know.
But they want access to a bathroom, that's the important part.
All right.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I got a question.
All right, we'll do one last
Okay.
question from the climate leaders to the city council members, and then I do want to, see if there's any questions that the council members have for you all. as residents, and being part of this program that I think maybe you guys can be on the forefront.
So I went to a listening session at El Concilio about Valley Link.
Mm-hmm.
I've also went to the Housing Authority Resource Fair and did the electric bike.
Mm-hmm.
William owns one. And I also was involved with that Mio car?
Mhm.
Mio car. And so at the listening session, here was the thing. So here's South Stockton, right? Here's El Dorado. Here's Eighth. And they would say, okay, let's put one over here by Conway.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll put one up here by Edison. And then we'll put one over here by possibly Little Manila. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, wait. So when I go to the north side, this is a field trip. I don't go just because I want tra-la-la.
Yeah.
It's 12 miles to the Walmarts and stuff like that,
Mhm.
right? So I'm like, I go here, gonna catch I-5, come back out, come back in, come back out. This is what I do when I go to the north side.
Mhm.
Or I don't go. Save it for another day till they compile. And I said, if I wanted to borrow one of your $4 an hour electric cars, I'd have to walk. Now, I have disability plates on my truck. So walking is not always an option. It depends if it's a good day or a bad day. I have asthma and borderline COPD. Not an option if it's a good day or a bad day, right? So my question is how can we get more of these dispersed through the South Stockton, a key, a chip, so I can take it to the north side, put it in my reservation. How can I get it delivered or auto collect? Put my address in and it comes to my house, But something that's more convenient, because even our RTDs, I see women and children sitting on the sidewalk because we don't have benches in my neighborhood, okay, for RTD. And I've gone to RTD. They give me my RTD board meetings emails all the time. We need. You know what? I'm going to tell you something, Dan. I was a truck driver for 10 years, and I retired. And one day I came out my front gate, and I said, where the F do you live, Pat?
Yeah.
Why are these people treated like this? Because I was never home, right? I'd come in for 36 hours and split.
Mm-hmm.
I said, why are these people treated like this? We have nothing there. We wanted Ralph White to give us that piece of land on Airport and 8th. Why can't we have El Dorado and 8th then with CMC and Stan? You know what I mean? Why are we, where our urgent cares are? Arch in 99, March Lane and up. We have no urgent care. If I have a neighbor that is from Mexico that doesn't speak English, who's taking care of her grandkids, so mom and dad can work, and McKinley says, hey, you got to come get your grandson, and she's like, okay, he's sick. She's like, I need you to come home from work. She just lost pay because she doesn't drive, because she can't get to San Joaquin General Hospital. How do we address that with RTD? How do we address that with electric cars? How do we get our residents of South Stockton to the necessary, necessary?
Well, RTD does have the Van Gogh service, which is an Uber-like program.
Does Grandma know that?
I-
See, this is my thing, is
Yeah.
the barriers.
Yeah, so it costs less than Uber. Yeah, it's a small passenger van.
Right,
And I think that,
but you gotta put in a reservation for it.
Yeah.
but I think it goes back to the Medi-Cal beneficiary, which is the county, is a public health outcry because these people are lack of accessing care. I totally get it.
Yeah.
About 2 years ago, when the county was trying to get rid of the clinic on Wilson Way, I lost it. In a passionate way. Because I'm
In
like,
front of people.
I'm just like, why are we taking away services in an area that has the worst health outcomes that need the services? It's an outcry. It is almost criminal. But I think that it goes back to organizing and elevating these voices and making sure that people understand the true pathway to getting a solution because it is necessary and it is needed. I just think that the pathway needs to be the Board of Supervisors.
Right.
And in terms of the project with the airport project corridor, it's clogged up in court. So it's kind of out of my reach, my hands, my capacity, my purview.
All of ours.
Yeah, all of ours. And so that's problematic
So
as
we'll
well.
go to Ace and El Dorado. So, okay, but with that,
Pat, that was the last question. I do want to turn it over to the council members now, and if you want to continue the conversation, I would like, you can reach out to them.
She has my number.
Because I do want to give the chance for now you all to kind of answer their questions if they have any.
So my question to you all is this is such a valuable platform, a valuable pathway for residents and our young people to amplify their voices, their concerns, and their vision for South Stockton. And so I'm just curious on how do we multiply that? How do we continue to build out capacity so that these voices can be inclusive?
I'm not from South Stockton, but I do have a few questions that, I feel for the residents of South Stockton. So what is being done that, rather than pushing people out from these communities, what's being done to have people stay in these communities? There's not many grocery stores, there's no fitness center, a gym. So what are the thoughts on that?
There's totally no, and you're speaking to the choir, 100 years of family transgenerational trauma, talking about the same concerns. I don't know if you remember, Dan, but I remember as a young girl, I remember my grandma organizing before Kmart or Mariposa was built. She was organizing for a Safeway to be there. But then there was some funkiness with that too, because I think that there was so much loyalty to the corner stores that people fought against that Safeway coming up because
big boxes.
The corner stores were giving credit to the community, and the community fought against the Safeway. But big box is definitely a barrier to bringing major food chains to South Stockton. I know that one thing that I've been trying to investigate, and I know that I may kind of get a little side eye from people, but you know what? The Walmart project was on the docket. It was approved into the big box. The property is still there. Walmart still owns it. Why not at least kind of modify that ordinance to allow
A neighborhood Walmart.
a neighborhood
or smaller
Walmart?
version,
Center.
It's just empty.
Well, it's just empty. But here's the thing, too. Let's be clear, because Southside's favorite auntie. I'm with it. But also, there's these policies that are also working against change too, and that's the big box is one of them. And then secondly, I will say also the way we pride ourselves with our community. So we're constantly harping our community and looking at it in a negative light. That's also counterproductive. I personally have been going out of state, going to Washington, D.C. I have a trip down to Southern California in a couple weeks to talk to some potential grocery store chains to bring to South Stockton, because I can't afford to wait. I think if you haven't read the article in the Stockton Record, if we could go, please do so, because I talked about how we cannot, Grant was there, Dad was there. We cannot forget about food insecurities and food deserts as well. But it's a hard lift because we haven't been looked at. There's a formula and a system that franchises look at to see if it's a viable place to build. There's been conversations with Winco and Costco too.
It starts with average per capita income.
Yeah.
And that's the starting point. And unfortunately, they look at Stockton. Stockton as a whole doesn't qualify for a lot of stores.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But these are, I'm about to do a,
You did
360?
Brandon Leaks too. You highlighted Brandon Leaks push for a
Yeah.
store and gym.
yeah. Yeah, that too. I'm about to do and again, I'm just thinking of ideas that call me crazy, but hey, I'd rather try something than not try at all. But I'm about to do a video that I'm going to post on social media, and I'm going to be walking and talking about South Stockton and say, hey, if you're interested, call me. Because I would love to talk about bringing your major chain to South Stockton. I can't guarantee it. But I can give that invitation out. So I've been writing major chains myself personally with our stories to invite them to look at places like the Walmart. And then there's also a grocery store on South El Dorado that closed down. It's vacant now. I'm like, how come we're not trying to sell that into a grocery store and/or the Kmart? Just saying.
Because
One-
Kmart gets more money with their lease if nobody's using it than they would to sell it.
Well, and then we talked about that at our Legislation and Environmental Committee last week, and that it should not be beneficial to keep a commercial building vacant.
Right.
Okay, so it should, over the number of years, you should have to pay for abatement of any problems that causes in the community.
Well, and not only that, but the blight. And
Yeah.
I will tell you, I talk about environmental traumas too. And I tell you that when our kids are passing by and they're seeing this vacant property with weeds and boards, that changes their whole trajectory of thinking. And so we need to be very intentional with our work here and how we're overseeing.
I mean, there's like so much vacant property and vacant land in South Stockton, and it can be revitalized and used for something useful rather than pushing the community out into other areas or other cities. Why not bring things into South Stockton?
Yeah.
And you're right, but I want you to change that can to we will. We must.
You know, and
And
what-
I think you're transparent because, oftentimes we, even people in North Stockton or anywhere, we often think, okay, it's the local government, local jurisdiction that's, not making things happen. But it can be the residents as too, the community, like you said, people didn't want the store in there, so in order for a change to happen, you gotta, be ready for that change.
Absolutely, and I'm gonna share a story with you. It's kind of funny now, but it wasn't then. But I remember I was in South Stockton. I don't know if y'all familiar with an area near Spring Street and Phelps. But I remember I got off work, but I was like, kind of dressed up, and I hopped out my car and I was like, hey. They're like, who are you? And I was like, oh, my name is Councilmember Wormsley, and I'm just I want to talk to you guys about South Stockton. They were like, are you the police? I said, no. I said, I'm your council member. They were like, why you want to talk to us? Nobody cares about us. I was like, no, that's not true. Like, I care about you. That's why I'm here, because I see all you young men out here. I want to know what you think about the community. And they were like, nah, we good. And I said, well, I'm coming back. They said, well, if you come back, we're going to talk to you. So the next day, not the next day, maybe the next week, I came back. They were like, hey, aren't you that woman that, the mayor? I'm like, no, I'm not the mayor, I'm the council member. But yeah, Kimberly
Give her a couple
Wormsley.
years.
Yeah. But, I'm back. And they were like, oh my God, we can't believe you came back. I was like, why? They were like, because no one's ever talked to us. I said, I want to talk to you. So we talked about everything from jobs, everything about the park, about the neighborhood. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to do my first commercial here. They're like, no, you're not. I was like, yes, I am. I'm going to do it right here at Brotherhood Park. They're like, no. I said, yes. So 2 weeks later, me and some camera crew who weren't people of color rolled up. And they were like, you sure you want to do your commercial here? I said, I'm definitely doing a commercial here. So they were like, oh. So the camera guys were like, well, it needs to be quiet. So these guys over here are talking. I said, no problem. Let me go over there and tell them to be quiet. So I walk over there. They're like, oh my God, what's up, girl? How you doing? I was like, hey, I want to do a commercial here, but you guys got to be quiet. It's like, oh, okay. Hey, man, shut put that music down. They were so quiet. I was out there taking selfies with them, taking pictures, and did my commercial with no issue at all. And still to this day, when I come through or, I'm going to the corner store, they give me nothing but respect. They're all registered to vote now, which is huge. They never voted in an election. They voted for me. They tried to leave the whole slate blank. I was like, no, you just can't vote for me and not everybody else. You gotta fill the card out. But to your point, it's these small conversations, one conversation at a time, that changes the trajectory of people and communities. So I'm gonna close by saying, just don't give. I know that sometimes you can feel hopeless, and I know sometimes there's so many barriers and deficits where you feel like you want to give up. Happens all the time. But we got to keep going. We got to put more pressure. Change is coming. It may, I'm not going to say it may not happen. I'm going to say when it happens. And we're all going to be like, whoa, Kimberly said that, and it's happening. So hold on to your seats.
Stockton's resilient. I mean, we have a lot of horror stories, but one of the things that I have learned in I haven't been here my whole life, but I've been here since 1993, so almost 30 years. One thing I've learned is Stocktonians are proud and they're resilient.
Yeah.
And I think that's an asset we can build on, and we just need to keep providing opportunities. The city council is one of those. I think we're very transparent about how we allocate money. The opportunities are there for people to speak up and advocate for their communities. So we encourage you to attend council meetings, especially when those discretionary items are up, where we have CARES Act or ARPA funds, American Recovery Act funds, and
surplus dollars.
Or surplus dollars at the end of a budget year. Mm-hmm. Those are the times when you want to say, hey, that thing that we've been wanting for a while, but we haven't been able to do it. Now we might be able to get a project for 2 or 3 years, to be able to give it a head start, and then we'll have enough momentum to keep going afterwards. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would recommend. And what I've seen in Stockton generally is that this is a city of survivors. People have gone through some heavy stuff here. And they survive, and they continue to survive, and some of them thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so this is a city of many great opportunities. And there's a lot of challenges as well, but the opportunities are there for people that want to grab them.
Take advantage of those 3 minutes.
Yep.
And I wanna
Reclaim your time.
Thank you guys for going out of your way to be sitting on so many committees. I know it's a lot of heavy lifting to do for a whole county. But to go back to your question about what the climate leaders are doing, they are being prepared to go into the neighborhoods. We also have a residents representatives program, so that we have more 8 to 12 residents to sit on these committees once a month. So if you know any Stockton residents in districts 6 and 5, please send them our way to public health advocates.
And then let us also know about those things, so that when we during council comments we can make that known, because Dan will tell you I have a whole PowerPoint presentation, and I'll talk and talk and talk and talk. So you let us know how we can also support you all and utilize our platforms for change.
Yeah, do you have any more questions for them that you want answered, or just like some conversation points before we wrap up?
Not for me, not a question, just a reminder, do your homework on community choice aggregation. It's a great thing, I promise you, and it will get reinvestment back into our community on climate-related issues. And also, the group we're working with, that we're submitting the proposal for East Bay Community Energy, has 2 different boards. They have a board of directors, and one of the council members will sit on that, but they also have a community advisory board. Mm-hmm. And I've been told that we will be granted a seat on that as well once we join.
I will say,
Yeah.
I am the vice chair of that.
Yeehaw.
For which person?
Yeah.
That commission. So
Okay.
if any of you want to be a part of that.
See, and Tracy just joined this year.
Yeah.
And you're the vice chair already?
Yeah,
Well,
they
nobody
just,
wanted that
they
seat.
just joined last year and he's already the vice chair of
You
that
move
board.
fast.
I was hoping someone else would step up, that's all.
But we really need to get someone who'll be vocal about Stockton's needs, someone who's knowledgeable and vocal.
That would make a perfect addition to
Yes.
that board, but,
Yeah.
I think because it's approaching 6:30, I don't know if you want to just wrap up any final comments,
I did mine.
so, Kim?
Whew, comments? I felt like I talked my head off tonight, but just be the change that you want to see and just understand that things take time. I think it's important that you are exercising your civic responsibility as residents. You know, for me, I always tell folks, don't tag me and don't boo. Show up and make your voices heard on any aspect of government. And also be engaged, like be that voice. And not only the responsibility like to the city, but there's a responsibility to the schools. There's a responsibility to that board of supervisors. And for me, again, mental health and wellness is what I'm passionate about. And I know that like the endemic that we're in, we're seeing a surge in young people and people of color who are not accessing mental health services. That's a problem to me. And so making sure that the true investment is going to the people and our young people that
I'm chair on that board.
good. Our young people who also need that hope and that leg up. So my contact information is on there. Thank you, Alyssa. I'm not hard to find, y'all, for real. So, and I'm an open, I have an open door policy. So if you need something, let me know. Right, Jonathan?
So just look up Dan Wright Stockton on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. I'm on all three platforms.
All right.
Are you done?
Well, give them a round of applause.
Give y'all a
Really
round of
appreciate you all
applause.
coming here. I'll just say, I was a little lazy, I don't have a surprise question, so if you stay to the end of this recording, no surprise question for the survey.
They're on our
Yeah, I just want to say
surveys.
thank you, and
All right.
that concludes it. Thank you so much for